I'm John Dunn. I originate from Claycross. I was a Derbyshire miner for a lot of my working life. And the thing about Thompson that has occurred to me or reoccurred to me today is I attended Derbyshire NUM's day release. And the first book we were told we had to read, not should read, had to read, was The Making of the English Working Class, which, I mean, as long as it is, it's captivating. And today's talks have made me want to revisit it. And I think it's even more relevant today when people now are in isolated from workplace. The whole issue of a post-industrial society, how do we deal with that? And a lot of political education has not addressed that. It's you're either in this camp or that camp. You either have a doctrine that you never detract from, or you freewheel about things and never ever draw any conclusions. So I think his whole method of challenging and thinking and learning from other people, because I think, again, today, nobody listens to an opposing view. And social media, meetings via one of the contributions about online meetings where I thought were very relevant, because you don't have that social intercourse after. You don't say, what did you think about that? You say your piece, it's done, it's over. When you click leave, that's the end of it, and it's gone instantly then. So I think the whole idea of revisiting that and looking at adult education in Claycross, growing up, the NUM provided a first-class education service in conjunction with Sheffield Extramural Department. We also had an adult education centre that were amenable. You could book a room in it for nothing and put on whatever you want. And then with the advent of local government cuts, things had to make a profit. So you got flower arranging, cake making, and foreign language lessons, because that's what people will pay for to do. So I think it's a neglected part. And the fella from the General Federation of Trade Unions hit it on the head, that it's a tiny, tiny proportion of a trade union and budget, and it's been neglected, especially since, the government funding came along, and a lot of it has been neglected, and we've got to get back to that. And so that's the challenge for movement today.
My name's Gawain Little. I'm General Secretary of the General Federation of Trade Unions. For 20 years, I was a primary school teacher, active in my union, first the NUT and then the National Education Union. So I've been a lay activist in the trade union movement for most of my career. I was very involved in the national executive of the union in the amalgamation of NUT and ATL to form the NEU, but throughout all of that time was also a working teacher in the classroom. We know that we face a crisis of trade unionism in this country, a crisis in the organised working class. We face attacks from the current Tory government, but also on the back of 40 years of the trade union movement essentially being on the back foot. We've seen declining numbers, and in particular, a huge decline in the coverage of collective bargaining arrangements that has left working people weaker. If we're to change that, it's going to involve organising, it's going to involve taking action, but fundamentally it has to involve education. When people first get involved in a trade union movement, they need to feel it offers them something, that it changes their directions, that it offers them a different future. And part of that is enabling them to think critically about the challenges they face, about their relationships at work and in their communities, and about how we build a different kind of society. Education is fundamental to that. So my aims at the GFTU are to expand the education that we provide for a huge range of workers in different industries. We cover a whole number of different sectors, including seafarers, including steel workers, including postal and communications workers, including teachers, a whole range of different areas of the economy, but all of those people need the opportunity to take part in trade union and working class education. They need the opportunity to develop their own trade union and working class education. They need to be part of that process of building as a class and as a movement. I think for far too long, trade union education has been, in many cases, too narrow. In many cases, it's been focused just on the functional skills that are needed by workplace reps, etc., but without that kind of deep understanding of our history, our labour history, where we come from, without a deep understanding of economics and political economy, without a deep understanding of the wider political context in which unions operate. For us, bringing that back in, labour history, political economy, and political education in its widest sense is a crucial part of what we do at the GFTU, genuinely supporting people to develop their organisations, their movement themselves. I think we still have an awful lot to learn from A.P. Thompson, in spite of the time that's elapsed. His key book, The Making of the English Working Class, I think is absolutely groundbreaking in the approach it took. It combines an analysis of what was going on in terms of the changing nature of production, the changing nature of social relations, but it combines that with agency for the working class, a class that was very much a participant in its own formation and its own development. And that has to be right at the heart of what we do in education, seeing working people, not as people to be done to. We will come and educate these people and better them. And similarly, not as a class that simply has to sit back and wait for socialism to come from nowhere, but a working class that plays an active part as a participant in its own liberation. For me, that's absolutely essential, and I think that really powerful body of work that A.P. Thompson created is part of what can help us to understand that. I would certainly recommend The Making of the English Working Class as a really good starting point for all those workers entering trade union education, and an opportunity to expand and develop how we understand ourselves as a class.